Hi, Jeremy Cordeaux in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm just on air here to let you know that we'll be live streaming the Court of Public Opinion every Friday between 9 o'clock and 12 on jeremycordeaux.com. Please join us. We'd love to have you.
Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show. I'd just like to take a moment to tell you about a book that I've written. It's a memoir called Fool Me Twice, and it's a story about my life with a focus on my journey internet dating, where I was scammed and injured in the process. It's an educational book that will help many other people not to get caught in the same trap that I was. I'd like to also take this opportunity to play my book promo for you. Here it is.
From life on a farm in rural Australia, where wide open spaces made a young woman yearn to know what was beyond her country town. She moved to the city, became a mother, and found her dream career which took her across the world. But still, something's missing. In her search for love, she traveled far, trusted deeply. She wanted so badly to find someone that she almost lost herself in the process and learned some hard lessons along the way. Fool Me Twice, a new memoir by Jules Hannaford. Available August 20th on Amazon.
Today I'm here with Debbie Mannas. Hi Debbie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi Jules, it's lovely to be here. This is new for me.
Is this your first podcast?
Yes, quite an experience.
Fantastic. That's great. Well, welcome. Debbie, where are you from and how did you end up in Hong Kong?
I am originally from Bangalore, South India, for a very mixed family. So for many generations, quite mixed. When I did a DNA test, I had over 15 mixes.
Oh, what are some of the main mixes that were in there? You don't have to name all 15.
No, when I did it, because I'm third generation, I'm 75% Indian, 18% Northern European, and then a mix of East Asian and some Mongolian. And in the Northern European, apparently there's 2% Ashkenazi Jew too. There's Iberian.
Well, 15 is a lot, isn't it, to have a mix of?
And there's some other things in there, but yes. So back to your question. I was born and raised in Bangalore, in a family that's defined in the Constitution as Anglo-Indian, so mixed, and very third culture. My sister got a job here in Hong Kong back in 1991 and was feeling really homesick. So she said, just come over. So we came over.
Oh, came to keep your sister company and you've been here for all these years.
We packed our bags and we came over. And I think within a month, I'd gotten a job and gotten sponsored and the rest is history.
How lovely. How long ago was that?
That was back in 1991, so I'm not counting. You don't want to say.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's a long time ago. I've been here since 2000. That's long enough. What did you dream of becoming when you were a child? What did you want to be when you grew up?
It was a combination of things. I was one of these audacious, curious kids that was everywhere, listening to adult conversations and analyzing their behaviors and reporting one adult to another and generally causing lots of trouble. I sang from a very, very early age. So it was a combination of studying people and being really curious about why they acted and the way they did, being almost predictive about how people would act and think, and then never getting disappointed, sadly, because, sometimes you think a person's going to act a certain way and then they don't disappoint you. And on the other hand, singing, and into practically everything. So it was a combination of both these. And as it turns out, that's what I'm doing today.
So you wanted to be a singer from a really young age?
I did. I've always sung.
Wow, that's brilliant.
I think when I was about 11, my dad bought me my first guitar. And so I picked up some guitar charts and learned how to play some really folky type songs, only to accompany myself for competitions.
And did you have singing training as a child?
No.
Oh, so you're just self-taught and you just have a natural ear for it.
I was very lucky because I have a family that's very deeply into music and all kinds of different music. So I never particularly followed one type of music. I grew up on folk and rock and country, classical, all kinds of influences.
And did you sing in different genres when you were young as well?
Combination. I grew up on jazz, actually. Now that I'm re-listening to all the jazz greats, I'm thinking, I knew that. I listened to that. So it's fantastic to actually be learning them now and singing them.
And that's so interesting, isn't it? So you grew up with that, and now that's kind of an area that you're really interested in now. Do you sing predominantly jazz?
I sing a combination of things, and that's because my style is very versatile. I think I'm lucky to have a fairly good range, so I play with that. And no one style is natural to me. When I write, I tend to be more ballady, and then we turn it into something else. I need to start out writing a particular style, like reggae or swing or,
So you pick your style and then you write your song.
Yeah.
And how do you write a song? Like, do you use a past tragic experience and do you call on past lost loves or do you make it up?
If you ask any artist how they compose or paint or write, it's not just one thing. You start off with a spark of something. It could be I'm watching a movie and a particular scene will trigger something. It could be something somebody said. There's a train of thought here and it'll come back to me because the other day my son said something about feels like lava. He was watching something on National Geographic or something and he said, feels like lava. And I'm like, oh my God, next song.
Yeah, that's a great title for a song, isn't it? Feels like lava.
So I have this whole stream of thought about how somebody's love was burning hot.
And flows like lava.
And then it solidified and hardened and became cold. And was not fun at all after that.
So that's one of your sad songs. Oh my gosh, that's cool.
But it's just like that. And when people write and create, I think my deep interest in human behaviors allows me to actually feel something, empathize with how somebody might feel in a particular situation that can translate into my songs.
Can it happen to you anywhere? Like an idea comes and you've got to start writing, maybe on the ferry or walking through town or you just make notes on your phone, do you?
Absolutely. And thank God for technology because it's made things so much easier. When I first started writing, which was maybe more than 20 years ago, I think, we didn't have iPhones and mobile devices. I had a little recording device and I would tumble out of bed at 2:00 in the morning just to nail it. I don't do that anymore and I lose good songs. That's in my head because I'm too lazy. But if I'm wandering the streets or if I'm in a mall, if you see this person who seems to be singing something into their device,
it's you. Do you have a favorite song that you've written or a song that's done very well or a signature song that you've written over the years? Is there something you love the most personally or do you have many that you really, really love?
I have many that I like, but there's one that's particularly close to my heart and it's called A Stranger in My Head.
Oh, that's a cool title.
Yeah.
Is that to do with mental health issues?
No, it's about a fantasy person.
Oh, okay. Cool.
That, we all have and we want other people to live up to this fantasy and it's not real.
That's a great concept for a song. I really like it.
Yeah. So, and that's more ballady song. That's quite a reasonable one. I was on Facebook one time. I had posted about what was going on in India. There was a movie about a god or goddess, which the ruling party did not approve of, or the RSS, they're fairly right-wing. So they threatened to behead the actress. And so I posted on Facebook about how divisive and dangerous things were becoming. Then I got attacked and trolled and people said, you shouldn't be commenting if you don't live in the country and how dare you and, anti-national and all of this other stuff. So I said, it's no point arguing. I'm just going to write a song.
Yeah, hit back with a song.
So I wrote a song called Would You? And it's, if I spoke of violence, would you listen? Would my voice be heard? Would I become more valid if I lived next door? Would you listen? That's reggae. So very Bob Marley.
Oh, that's very cool. So you're really making a sort of social and political statement through your music to hit back at these people who are trolling you. And that's something that wouldn't have happened to you 20 years ago. How do you feel when you get negative comments on social media? Can you cope with it okay, or is it really hard?
I haven't got that many yet.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Because maybe not enough people have listened to my songs. But when I first started, I was one of the few digital artists. This was like literally 20 years ago when mp3.com was just come into being. And I had written a song called Body Talk and I put it on social media, asked people to listen to it. There were some very nasty, mean comments about the song. There were some great comments. And you learn to be tough. You learn that some people don't have any other better work.
Yeah, and they're really miserable and they're just taking their misery out on others by trolling them.
And could they improve it? Would you give me suggestions to improve it then?
Yeah. No, it's not easy when you're in the public eye and you start to get criticism or negative comments and you have to let it wash over you rather than taking it on board and letting it stress you out.
And I think we all have that. We are critical of other people and artists as well, right? But I also think that you can't please everybody. You know that your music will appeal to some and won't appeal to others. All you can do is execute it well.
And do your best. Do you enjoy your work in human resources and how do you balance that with being a singer?
I love my work in HR. So my specialty is organization development and talent. So building leaders, building succession, culture change, diversity and inclusion. It goes back to the whole behavior aspect and why I love how humans think and grow.
You developed that as a child, watching people.
Yeah, and I did psychology in university as well,
Right.
So I'm using in lots of ways what I grew up wanting to do and learning about. My work is quite meaningful. I really love it. It helps people.
And when you say talent, are you in the media industry or is it just talent in any industry that you're working in?
In the corporate world, when we say talent, we talk about people who have the ability to grow and develop and become leaders in the company. Or even like really great people. How do you bring in and support really great people?
Okay, that makes sense. What about balancing that full-time job with being a singer and doing gigs and writing music and playing? How do you do that? And you're a mum. How do you do all of that?
I get asked this question lots of times and I say, well, think of it like people running a marathon, right? They train, they wake up at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning and go run miles and miles and they train. Or dragon boat races, or golfing, any hobby where it's not just a hobby, it's more than that. It's part of you that you need it to be sane. That's one aspect of it. So for me, it's not just balancing, I need to do it, but it also builds my creativity. Last year when I produced the album, from composing to bringing the artists together to booking the studio and going in and recording and sitting with the person who was mixing it, mastering it, working with the designer, coordinating a whole bunch of people who are actually not corporate people. These are very, very different kinds of people. They are musicians and creative people who may or may not remember that they have something on, double booked. May have something else booked that's worth more to them, for example. So you're juggling all of this, plus you're traveling. It really taught me resilience, patience, and never to lose it.
And are you able to do that? Stay calm under fire when things aren't going well?
Because you just have to maintain that balance, right? And the other thing is, it can't affect how you sing. So I'm in there and waiting for things to be set up. Something may be failing. It may take another hour to set the whole drums and mics and whatever else up. And we are all just sitting there waiting. Then I have to sing for the next 3 hours, So you just have to maintain that equilibrium and what are you doing this in service of? What are you doing this in service of? And that has actually allowed me, when you play it back in the corporate world and bring the things that you've learned, the coordination, thinking of things like a whole big project, it's transferable. So it's helped me.
Oh, yeah, because there's a lot of transferable skills, resilience, patience, working as a member of a team, being a leader, all of those things.
And working with diverse people.
Yes, working with different people from all walks of life and having to juggle all different personalities. That's really impressive. And I think that we can take a lot from that we can actually learn so many skills from our creative endeavors that can transfer into other areas of our life. And creativity is super important. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. when you think of creativity, people immediately think that you have to make something. You have to paint something or take a photograph or be that person, that something visual. But creativity could apply in ways that you think of a problem, how you problem solve, the angles that you approach it from, how you're connecting the dots. There's myriad ways creativity can show up at work.
So many different ways. It's really thinking outside of the box, isn't it? And making choices that push you to think in different ways and to develop yourself.
So you do the podcast, and even as you're doing it, I'm sure you're making connections with what next or who next. And even though it's some completely random person that might approach you, you start thinking, what value can it add?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just this aspect of the recording that is creative, the social media, the research, the questions, connecting with the guest, all of that is creative. And it's so good and it's so inspirational. I always feel so inspired by doing anything that's creative, whether it's the podcast or painting or singing or anything. How did your family react to your desire to have a singing career? Did you feel really supported by them?
Not remotely in the least.
Oh, I'm shocked. Really? Why is that, do you think?
It's got nothing to do with them per se. It's just that the music industry is not a fantastic industry to work in, and it's not the ideal career that any parent would wish for their children.
Because it's so subjective and it's hit and miss and you can't make a regular income necessarily, and it's a very fickle sort of...
It's fickle, it's not stable, but also the industry as it is, or even maybe as it was, in order to thrive, you almost have to sell your soul, right? And growing up in India, it's absolutely not the kind of industry that, you think of Asian parents, right? What industry do they want?
Medicine, law.
So medicine, engineering, law, not even law, not that much. The sciences, the STEM subjects, all of these things that's likely to earn them money. High level, high value.
Yes.
I think careers per se were not discussed. My dad just saw where I was going with this because I was so deeply involved in college cultural festivals and competitions and, winning university prizes and then representing university at a all India regional level and so on. And we had an all-girl band, the first of its kind, first all-girl band in Bangalore called Lace. And we did some shows at Windsor Manor and Holiday Inn and some Christmas shows. And so he started getting very concerned that this was my direction. And my dad was an engineer. So my sister's a doctor. I have a family full of professionals that do doctors, engineers, teachers, and so on, right? So he saw that I had bigger potential, but we never really discussed career per se and what I wanted to be. But he actively dissuaded me from being a singer. And one of his real fears, and in hindsight, he was right. His real fears was that I would end up drug addict, full of cigarette burns and dead in a gutter somewhere.
And did that happen to you?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so why did you say he was right?
I say he was right because when you look at the trajectory and how musicians tend to end up, what fame does to people and all of that.
Yes. Look at, what is it, the 27 Club, all of those musicians who have died at 27. Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Jimi Hendrix. I'm sure there's a whole bunch more. There are many more. But yes, there are many people that do get sort of caught up in the world of drugs and alcohol. And it's also not really conducive to having a family, is it? If you're sort of out on the road touring or you're gigging late at night and things like that.
And, we were not a conventional family by any means. When I think of the conversations that we had growing up, none of it was about how many kids we would have or who would and wouldn't marry us and what. I'm one of 4 sisters, I should say. And we never had the conversations around the role of the female in the family. We must learn to cook and do things that very stereotypical female type stuff. My dad had more ambitions for us than we had for ourselves, I think. So this was really all good stuff. So I think he wanted me to be an engineer. I'm like, no.
Did you study psychology at uni?
I did.
But you did singing and had a band while you were there?
Yeah.
You studied psychology and you were singing at uni and you were in a band and you were winning competitions while at university. And was Dad not very thrilled that you were doing psychology? Because that's still quite a prestigious career.
Not at the time. Lots of my peers and my family were doing science, were doing STEM subjects, physics, chemistry, maths, and biology. but that wasn't for me. And they were fine with that. I mean, he did not push me to be anything I didn't want to be. I think he just didn't want me to become a musician, like a full-time musician, because he just thought it was a dangerous thing to do, especially in India.
As your career has progressed, have they become proud of what you've achieved and changed the way that they felt about your career?
Sadly, my dad passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
When I was 26 or 20.
Okay, so you were quite young, yes.
And my music has been a little bit patchy because there were times when it just fell off. I had no time for it pursuing career. But I've always written, I've always, sung at one point or the other. And yeah, they're pretty thrilled. My sisters, my mum.
Oh, that's great.
My husband, my son, yeah.
They really love it?
Huge supporters.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
How often do you do gigs these days?
So, you asked that question and I was reviewing what I'd done in the past month or so. It's approximately maybe about 4 times a month, and in between rehearsals and recordings. We've done a lot of recordings through December. So it's looking like that. For a full-time musician, that's not a lot.
No, but you're not full-time, are you? But you're part-time. And so you're working full-time in HR and you have a son and a husband.
Yeah.
So you're pretty busy. So that's pretty impressive to be doing 4 times a month. Where do you typically perform? Do you perform in nightclubs, in restaurants? What sort of things do you do?
I perform with a few different musicians, depending on when we get a gig and who's available. So I have a jazz band called Syzygy, and we turn iconic pop into jazzy, groovy sort of sounds with a lot of harmonies interlaced. So my partner and I, we sort of take turns to do solos and then come together with vocal harmonies in a huge range of pop and jazz. Largely, we perform at the Fringe Club.
That's a great venue.
Yeah, it really is a lovely venue. But we've been known to perform at many other venues as well. We get a lot of corporate gigs because, elegant evenings.
Oh, that's nice.
So we would do things like Conrad or Shangri-La. 2 Sundays ago, we spent the whole day at the Sharton Race Club, the Sharton Races.
Oh, cool.
2 Sundays ago, we spent almost the entire day at a corporate event over at Sharton.
Cool.
So we performed in between every race.
Oh, wow, that's great. That must be so much fun. You must get to meet loads of different people and interesting people going around and doing these different gigs.
I think that's the joy of it.
Yeah.
And especially different musicians, working with different musicians. That's so much fun.
When I was researching you, I listened to some of your music. It's fantastic,
You did?
by the way.
Thank
yeah,
you.
on YouTube.
So see, that's a positive review.
Yeah, definitely. I thought it was great. I really loved it. I was looking at some newspaper articles and it really seems like your star is starting to really rise in Hong Kong. How does that feel?
I don't think about it like that.
Oh, okay, you don't?
Not at all.
Is that because you've been doing it for such a long time?
I just want to write and sing and have my music heard and played to people, right? A lot of my songs have a message. You would have heard that. So I'm at the stage where it's going in fame and all of these things. I think it also depends on what you define as your star is rising. For me, it's really about how I'm turning my music into listenable music and how we execute them, how it's reaching people, particularly the socially conscious ones. Still me, I don't know about the star rising.
Yeah, that's really nice. And I guess what you really want to do is change the world through your music and have an impact on people on an emotional level. Yeah, it's not about fame or money, I suppose. It's more about people loving the music and having some sort of impact on them.
Yes. And the joy, just the absolute joy of performing and singing.
Do you get
and
nervous?
Working with musicians. I think everybody has nerves. There's that element.
It's quite healthy, isn't it,
There's
to have
that
a bit
element,
of nervousness, yeah? Because it means you're going to perform to your best.
Yes.
Yeah.
You absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
And then you just have to get into the zone. Sometimes it takes some time to get into the zone.
Exactly. What do you find most rewarding about being a singer?
Singing. I don't know how else to put it. You just
love singing.
Need to sing. Yeah.
When you sing, you kind of get an adrenaline rush, don't you? It's almost like a natural high. I've sung on stage a couple of times in my life and It was such a buzz. Yeah. I loved it. It was a real rush. And in fact, when I was young, I used to just go out on my own and go to karaoke and sing on my own a couple of songs and then go home. And I used to just love it.
And it's really good for you too.
It's good
for your lungs. It's good for your soul. It's good for endorphins. It's just good for so many things. But it's translating, and it's not just singing, because you're interpreting a song and you're conveying an emotion to people and making people feel something. that's just something else. And you can see it. You know, when you've touched somebody, you can actually see it.
Yes, you can. You can feel the energy as well. I noticed from researching you that you write poetry. And is that linked to your writing songs, or is that quite separate?
No, the two are absolutely integral to each other. I'm at heart a lyricist. So I almost always begin with lyrics. Even if I'm walking and singing to myself, it will be around a subject. And, I start off with the lyrics and then try and see, okay, how would this be hooky? Then put some melody around it. But I would almost always start off with poetry. And on my site at allpoetry.com, there's close to 200 poems over there. And there's a ton that I haven't posted.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
And do you turn some into songs?
I've turned almost all poetry on there. All the songs are on there as poems.
Right. Okay. That's amazing.
I should say that.
Yeah. Have you written about 200 songs or more?
No, I've written about 200 odd poems and many, many, many more songs that you're hearing publicly.
Right. Okay.
Just haven't been turned into,
Wow, you're so dedicated. That's super impressive. It really is.
Time where I was really prolific. I'm traveling a lot now and, I've sort of slowed down a little bit. Yeah. There's a lot more there.
I noticed that you used to be a mentor at the Women's Foundation. What did that look like? And was that really rewarding?
That was lovely. I credit that period in my life with the confidence I have now, actually. When you sign up, that most of us women, actually, the journey that we've gone on, we know and we can recognize the struggles of other women, but not everybody pays attention to that or reaches out because we all want to be so super confident in who we are, right? But actually inside we need someone else, and I wanted to be that person to someone else, but also, I've always been a sounding board and a coach in my role. And then when this came up, I signed up. They have quite a rigorous selection process. So I was very pleased to be selected one of 50 out of 500 applicants.
Oh, congratulations. That's super impressive.
Yeah, it's a really, really great program. And I would encourage a strong woman leader who hasn't yet signed up to do so because, we're giving back. And then they match you. And I was matched with this lovely girl who's still a really great friend of mine. We're still on WhatsApp. And she still edits some of my photographs for me. Her name is Letitia in the events and marketing space. We hit it off. We became really good friends. I learned a lot from her because she does a lot in the digital space. She was able to bounce some things off me that opened her mind a little bit to what she could do next, which she's doing. And now she's in London and she's become a mentor too.
Oh, that's lovely. Paying it forward,
right? Because her experience was good. My experience was really good. You learn a lot. The foundation, the Women's Foundation itself, they have a series of networking sessions and 1.5 hour type small workshops through the year. So that both pair can meet and then you meet separately as well. And then you network. And so those networks and those relationships that I built over that time, we're still really close and they're great supporters. So, I'd say, oh my God, please do. If you've not been a mentor, part of a mentor pair, then it's a really good experience.
Sounds like a fantastic program. It's actually something I'd be really interested in doing. It'd be great. It's just finding the time, but I guess you can find it if you really want to. I mean, you're super busy and you were able to do it. And you were also participating in the Community Business Diversity and Inclusion Asia Network. What inspired you to be involved there? What were you doing and how was that?
So I want to backtrack a little bit. When I was in one of my previous companies, the chairman of the company was on the leadership board of community business. And so he signed me up for that too. And we would go and we both then were on community business leadership team. It was called CBLT at the time. So I made many relationships there and have some really dear friendships. And when I joined this current company, we signed up for the Diane. So we subscribed to it and we partner with them actually to roll out diversity initiatives within the company.
Oh, right. Where you work now.
Now.
Great.
So under part of my mandate is diversity and inclusion.
And is that with helping people get work from diverse backgrounds? Is that what you mean?
Our focus in the company is on gender, moving to parity, generational respect, not just,
not getting rid of the oldies.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is my fear.
Sorry, everybody has something to give and share and leverage. And as our work life gets extended, we're seeing balance now between people who stay at work longer and the millennials and the younger generation. So we're going to have 4 generations in any workplace soon, right? So we're going to have to work and respect and leverage off each other. So that's the second one. And then we're calling the big elephant in the room, culture. So that's our third one.
Oh, that's really cool. So you're working in those areas, both for the community business diversity group and within your business.
We partner with them to bring in...
to bring in that understanding.
Or research.
I've got it. Right. Yes, that makes sense. Got it. Fun fact about you is that I read on social media that you were in labour with your son for 64 hours. Oh my gosh, how did you do that? Tell me about your birthing experience.
You really want to know this?
Yeah, I do.
Really want to know.
They sure do.
So waters broke, went into labor, nothing much was happening, got sent home, came back the next day, nothing much was happening. And so this is like over a period of 2 days. On the third day, induced me. And then by 7 o'clock in the evening, I was ready to push. Then Josh, my son, got stuck. And so then I had to have an emergency C-section after all of that.
You could have saved yourself 64 hours. 63.
It was closer to 68. If you count from the time the waters broke to actual delivery.
You must have been exhausted.
So what happened was I decided to be this earth mother and not have any drugs.
I did that too. Yeah.
And learned how to deep breathe and all of it. So I was lying there in the hospital with my hands over my big belly, breathing with my eyes closed. And the nurses were all asking my husband if I was Buddhist. And so I managed to go for 2 days like that. And when they decided to induce, I'm like, can I please have an epidural?
Yes, because when you have an induction, everything hammers. Yes, it goes really hard and fast. Yes.
And actually, so that's what happened. Joshua was in position and then he turned, not flipped, but his head was down like that.
Yeah, posterior.
It turned up.
Oh, I see.
So his forehead got stuck.
What are your thoughts on good parenting tips? What's your advice for being a good parent? Trust your instincts?
I think that's one, but your instincts have to be trustable to start with. So I don't know if that's such a good... I think the key is to give your kids a set of principles which they can apply through life. And my son is just 12, so I don't know if I'm such a fantastic parent, but he is a really great, decent kid who's rarely, if ever, thrown a tantrum. He's reasonable. I think that's always been his nature. It's probably in his DNA and we got lucky. Maybe a factor of being an older parent, who knows. I think when my helper can give me any feedback she wants on his behavior, or anyone can, and we will address it. We will have the talk, but we will address it. I don't think I'm one of those parents that is defensive about how he behaves.
So it sounds like you have open communication, which is important, isn't it?
I think being protective and defensive about your child, like he's the most decent, could never ever put a foot wrong type of thing. Not listening to feedback is not helpful for your child.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the world is going to tell them differently. So you might as well address it.
That's really good advice. What do you think is your greatest joy in life?
I'd have to say my child, absolutely. Being able to write, being able to create.
That's good. That's great.
I have a whole ton.
Yeah.
But I think topping the list would be, making the decision to have my child and then...
I agree. Same here.
It's just amazing.
What do you hope for the future for yourself?
How long is a piece of string?
To see what unfolds.
I want to be able to do more of what I'm doing in both areas of my life.
In both the corporate world and the singing world.
Yeah. Have a bigger impact in changing people's lives, particularly when it comes to inclusivity, building really strong teams, building good leaders, and doing what I'm doing with the music.
Yeah. Debbie, if my listeners want to check out your music or find you online, how can they do that?
I have a site at cdbaby.com. It's called cdbaby.com/Deborah, DEBORAH9. I'm also on Facebook Deborah Mannas. That's my artist page. My artist name is Deborah, DEBORAH. I'm on Instagram, also Deborah Mannas, MANNAS. I think if you Google Debbie Mannas or Deborah Mannas or Deborah Inspired.
Yes, you can find a lot of stuff on you. And you've got some great songs up on YouTube as well, which I really enjoyed. Debbie, thank you so much for coming to talk to me today. It's been really, really wonderful and super inspiring. And I think I'm going to sing all the way home.
That's fantastic.
To my listeners out there, if this is a podcast that you've really enjoyed and you know somebody else who would like to listen to it, please can you share it with them? And if you could go to iTunes to rate and review us, that will help move Hong Kong Confidential up the charts. and help Debbie get more listeners for her YouTube channel. And just remember, sing your heart out, be creative. Life is really there for living. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Jules. This was wonderful.
Yeah, it's been great having you here. So much fun. So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it? I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.
Hi, Jeremy Cordeaux in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm just on air here to let you know that we'll be live streaming the Court of Public Opinion every Friday between 9 o'clock and 12 on jeremycordeaux.com. Please join us. We'd love to have you.